I'm Chris Lawrence in Dallas with your headlines from North Texas. Officials are releasing 3 dogs back to their owners after they were suspected of mauling a man to death. A Tarrant County judge ruled there's not enough evidence to deem them dangerous. But that's got some neighbors worried. And Brittany Costello spoke to one man who has no doubts these animals are to blame.
Ronald Anderson was the kind of neighbor you'd want.
Very soft-spoken guy. Never said a bad word about anybody that I ever heard.
Barry Witherall says Anderson was kind and at 82 years old, still fiercely independent. He was working in his backyard in June when he was attacked.
Well, it's crushing.
Family members found him dead inside his home near Eagle Mountain Lake.
It's one thing for an old guy to pass because he's an old guy, to be attacked by dogs and bleed out.
Witherall says in his mind, there was no question who was responsible. The neighbor Anderson shared his back fence with.
They came from somewhere. And we know those guys get out all the time.
There was a hole where you see those light-colored boards. The Tarrant County Sheriff's Office seized a pit and 2 shepherd mixes.
The government brought forth this motion and wanted these dogs killed and asked the judge to have them killed.
Justin Sparks and Stephen DiTommaso represent the dog owner. They say there was one major problem with that.
There's not much evidence that ties the dogs to the actual killing. So there was no blood trail back to the hole. There was no blood trail on the dog owner's property.
Their game cameras caught several other dogs roaming the neighborhood. A judge ruled Friday the dogs should be released.
Family members say they are too upset to talk to us. They also say they don't want to ruin this investigation, but they do say they are extremely concerned about the safety of this neighborhood.
DNA testing and bite mark analysis have been brought up, but it's unclear if those tests were done. The Tarrant County Sheriff's Office didn't answer that question Monday. A spokesperson says the investigation is ongoing. Sparks says for the sake of Anderson's family, he hopes that's true.
I think we should rewind 50 days ago, and they should have started investigating or kept investigating back then.
In Fort Worth, I'm Brittany Costello.
Public health officials are issuing a new warning after a bat tested positive for rabies in Plano. A dead bat was found last week not far from West Parker Road. Rabies impacts human beings' central nervous system, and once symptoms appear, it's almost always fatal. Officials are encouraging families to make sure pets are up to date on vaccines, and if you believe yours came into contact with that bat, call Animal Services immediately. A pilot was able to walk away without a scratch after making an emergency landing in Waxahachie. Police say the single-engine plane took off from Dallas Executive Airport Monday, just after noon. The pilot noticed an oil leak and the engine lost power. He didn't believe he'd make it to the regional airport in Midlothian, but managed to land the plane in an open field near Baylor Scott and White Medical Center. The Dallas City Council is about to dig into the new budget proposal, and it's already stoking controversy over a possible closure. As Cole Sullivan reports, neighbors aren't sure they can save their local library again.
In a new Dallas budget that proposes millions for streets, raises for new officers, and cuts of 2 community pools, there's a sense of deja vu.
And I guess we're right back where we started a year ago.
For Maggie Watson.
I'm so angry and frustrated.
Last year, she collected thousands of signatures to save the Skillman Southwestern Library branch from budget cuts. Now, it's on the chopping block again.
Familiar and frustrating for me.
Friends Ashley Grossman and Caitlin Dolt say this library is a community. They even feed Mama, the stray cat who lives on its roof.
When you saw that this library was once again slated for closure in the budget, what did you think?
It's game time. It's time to do exactly what we did last year again.
This library is just one tiny line item in a $5.2 billion city budget. It includes millions for police officers and firefighters. In fact, nearly 2/3 of the proposed general fund budget will go to public safety. And neighbors here say they just want to see a little bit of that for this part of their community.
There just has to be a balance somewhere, and there has to be a limit at some point.
City leaders have previously said this library isn't as busy as other branches, and there are alternatives nearby. Plus, it's a tight year for Dallas.
We are faced with some tough budget decisions with limited resources.
We love Skillman Southwestern.
But neighbors here worry their branch is only the first.
It may be this library right now, and you may not care about it citywide, but it will be your library next.
The city says it'll look to close up to 4 more branches next year. In Dallas, I'm Cole Sullivan.
The Collin County Sheriff's Office is preparing for possible staff cuts, but officials can't agree on where. Commissioner Darrell Hale says the county has paid millions of dollars in overtime at the jail. It believes they need to cut other positions to fund more detention officers. But Sheriff Jim Skinner says it would have a negative impact throughout Collin County. One commissioner abstained and the vote ended up tied 2-2. So they tabled the vote for now as they look at other ways to cut costs. Students in Richardson ISD go back to school on Tuesday, and as Dia Wall reports, the district has come up with a creative way to retain its best teachers and keep them in the classroom.
First grade is Miss Oliver's first love.
I was actually an RISD graduate, so I went here kindergarten through 12th grade, and so I did the elementary teaching internship when I was in high school.
And it's easy to see, this new mom belongs here.
You know, research is very clear about the power of a teacher in the classroom. Our teachers have the #1 impact on student learning and student achievement. There's just no question about it.
That's why RISD is doing things differently.
We have an employee wellness clinic where for a $10 copay, not only our teachers but their families can go and have access to acute care.
I've been to the health center, yes, so we've been able to utilize that. Having the really cheap copay has been nice. We hope to get into the Child Learning Center in next year, so because that would be amazing to have, you know, cheaper daycare for our babies.
And the price will blow any parent away.
A young family can bring their 6 weeks to 3-year-old child for $350 a month and have that high quality child care.
A heck of an incentive for a new family figuring things out.
Having a 9.5-month-old right now, like, hopefully being able to get into that next year, that would save us so much money just month to month as a teacher.
It's all worth it. And I can tell you story after story where either because we had the benefits we do, a teacher chose Richardson ISD, or because we have what we have, they chose to stay in Richardson ISD.
A new school year is the first sign summer's coming to an end, and now Six Flags Over Texas is gearing up for its annual Fright Fest this fall. They'll turn up the terror with 6 haunted houses based on horror films like The Conjuring, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Saw. There'll also be rides after dark, live shows, and so-called scare zones where costumed characters bring nightmares to life. Fright Fest opens September 12th at Six Flags in Arlington, and if the decorations at most stores are any indication, Halloween is right around the corner. And those are your headlines from North Texas.